Let me gently introduce our panel tonight for tonight's debate here on Wednesday Night Undressed. The magic Dr. Orlando, the indefatigable Kathleen Taylor, Mikey Pokorny, of course.
Hello.
Yes, and joining us tonight, Chris Magerkurth.
Greetings.
Who's come straight off the US Open at Erin Hills, which he won and got $3 million.
Only in my dreams right now.
Hold on. I think that's a fantastic question. If you found out tomorrow you had inherited $3 million, what's the first thing you'd do?
Pay off my house.
Nothing
That's
fantastic?
a hell of a house.
I'd have a lot left over. I paid off the house, but I'd like to get rid of that house payment. That's the first thing I'd do.
The interesting thing is that if you actually won $3 million, you would be advised by the people that you'd won it from to talk to one of their accountants, who would tell you what you needed to do, and paying off the house would be 15 or 20 things down the line that you have to do.
You'd probably want to protect yourself. I'm assuming
security would be the first thing you would get to.
Even setting aside $1.5 million for taxes, that leaves me another $1.5 million to play with, and I can well pay off my house with $1.5 million, and then the rest I'd probably invest.
Trust me, you can go through $1.5 million, dollars, pounds, or euros really quickly.
Says Jeremy from experience.
But what you do is you don't tell anybody. That's the first thing.
No.
Because people say, oh, well, and then it gets in the paper, and then all of a sudden people who you've never heard of, and they get really funny and unpleasant with you.
It's your third Uncle Jerome. You never heard
talking of money,
why haven't you called? Why haven't you called?
Talking of money, as a parent, our first question for the panel tonight, as a parent, is it our job to ensure that we leave a bunch of money to our kids?
Nope.
The idea is that we discuss this rather than 7 of us go, nope.
I'm a firm believer in the death tax.
There is a difference between the answer to that question for me and for my mother. Okay.
What's the difference?
Her? Yes. Me? No.
Now, is your answer no?
Sorry, Mom.
And she has a different answer for me, right?
What would her answer for you be?
Yes.
Oh,
I should leave her a bunch of money.
But the real question is, death that you gain from inheritance, is that earned income?
Yes.
See, I thought about this, and I'm curious on your answer in particular, Kath, because for me, this is a philosophical question. Like, is it our responsibility to continue to provide for our family after we're gone?
Okay.
Is how I look at it.
Yeah, you can look at it that way, and that makes it a really interesting question. But the real answer to that particular question, to my mind, is you have an obligation to do what you can to help your kids grow up and thrive.
Right.
Become functioning members of society.
If you have money left over after reasonable living, then you should help them out by leaving it to them. But if it takes all you got to keep you from being thrown out in the streets, then don't feel guilty. You don't have it.
Mikey Pokorny is looking slightly sideways at the moment, and
very despondent.
Yes, because I don't know. Did your parents leave you money? They haven't died. You look really disappointed.
I'm just self-reflecting, that's all.
You're doing what?
He doesn't.
Would you mind not doing that at the table, though? Because really,
No.
Well, you'll have to get some towels because I'm done, so.
Oh.
Done self-reflecting for the day.
Okay, cool.
Now I got to get out of here. Does anybody have any cab fare? You guys have any cab fare? Did your parents leave you money for cab fare?
What do you think, Lewis? You got a bunch of kids.
No, I
don't know how
think
many
I'm
you've
in
got.
the same boat as Kath. I think that it is not an imperative that I leave them money. I think it is more an imperative that I teach them how to be self-sufficient. And in the course of doing that, if I can help, then great. But in ancient Greek philosophy, classic philosophy, I don't remember what the course was called, we came across this term, eudaimonia. It is the good life, and the argument was had at the time, can you have a good life if you're... Well, for the ancient Greeks, apparently, you couldn't have a good life until after you were dead, because having a good life was critically dependent on your family being happy.
Oh,
so,
right.
eudaimonia, at least in my pre-graduate understanding of all things philosophy, was that this was a term that applied exclusively to a person after they were dead. Do you have a good life? Did you have a good life? Well, it depends entirely on how your extended family is living. So I'm not even sure that still makes it an imperative that I leave my kids money. I think it'd be much more important that I teach my kids to be self-sufficient and happy.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my argument, is that that's your job, is to make them functioning members of society, that they're not a drag. And beyond that, no, you shouldn't leave them money. I mean, in your argument, you've brought them to the point where they're functioning members of society. You have a little bit left over. Wouldn't it be better to take that money and give it to somebody who has more need than your kids? Because your kids, they're on their path to go on and making their own fortunes. You've got these kids over here who haven't had, enough school books, or haven't had enough paper or pencils in order to get the opportunity to become functioning members of society.
No, I'm not sure that's exactly what I meant, that you should leave money to somebody else because your kids are comfortable enough. Mm-hmm. What I mean is that you don't have to leave them money, but if you've got millions and millions, you don't have to leave that to them either. I mean, you don't want to be ungracious to them.
It's not a moral imperative.
But it's more important to spend it not being a drag on them, not weighing them down.
So what about the argument that giving them the money would weigh them down? Does that then make it a requirement that you give it away?
Well, I think you're assuming a lot more riches than most of us are going to be talking about. I'm talking about the average person.
The average American or the average person?
Average American. When you die, you generally don't have millions. Not the vast majority of people.
I would agree with
that.
But
if you have $30,000 left in your bank account and your kids have been good to you, leave the money to your damn kids.
Mm-hmm. What is the average American inheritance?
I don't know.
I don't think it's that much at all.
I would bet
probably not that much.
I bet it's a few $1,000s at most. Is what the average American inheritance is, which leads me to believe that most people just do not have a whole lot when they do die.
If you pay attention to the commercials or what have you, people are going into debt burying their loved ones. I'm betting that there's a negative number attached to like this notion of an average inheritance. So, no, I'm talking completely in the imaginary. Suppose you do have oodles and oodles of cash. Like, is your job to give that to? Is it your job to give that money to your progeny? And I think the answer to that question is no. You can if you want to, just as long as you're not building.
I see the
leeches.
question more as, should you feel like a failure if you die without leaving your kids a whole lot of money?
No,
I don't think you should.
As a kid, say your parents do have $50 million. Mm-hmm. They give you $1 million and donate the $49 million rest to charity. The kid should not be mad. The kid should not be resentful.
Well, I think it's the parent. No, I think that is entirely the parent. I think if you're teaching your kid to be self-sufficient and to be, their own person, I think that lesson has already come much earlier in life, and so they are not going to be expecting it and being angry. However, if you've raised a leech and you've basically given this kid everything that they want or everything that they ask for, and not giving them the tools to figure out how to go out and make it on their own, then the kid's going to be mad. But quite honestly, it sounds like the kid might have a little bit different issues with his parents.
And especially if you're a millionaire or billionaire, children already have a future. There is absolutely
the children are a future.
nothing that's going to make them go homeless the next day. Absolutely not. Me, though, my opinion, I don't have kids. I don't care. So we're all going to die. The end of the world. I'm just trying to get laid.
Talking of, we're all going to die in the light.
Your priorities right, I think.
In the light of the recent terrorist attacks in the UK and Europe and the subsequent non-resident tourist deaths, would you change your travel vacation plans to visit, say, the UK or Europe and their capital cities? It has
if
to
you
be
already
noted.
had travel plans, would you cancel them?
Or you have sort of talked to your wife or husband about going, you're fairly sure that's what you're going to do, and you realise that in excess of 50% of the deaths in this year's terrorist attacks have been tourists, both in Europe and in the UK. Would you change your plans?
You should probably look at the probability of getting killed by a terrorist as opposed to the probability of dying in a street accident.
Yeah, you're probably more likely to die in somebody hits the taxi that you're riding around
Yeah.
in. Or,
Yeah, because they're all driving on the wrong side of the road anyway.
Yeah, they get very confused, knowing that they're in the wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
but I don't think I'd change my travel plans. Nor, I mean, it's still a minuscule percentage chance that you'd ever die in a terrorist act. So for me, it's
Well, you're eating at Conroy's. I mean,
yeah.
you're
Yeah,
obviously
you're
prepared
brave.
to take risks.
So,
Lewis,
this is.
Dr. Orlando.
I feel like there's. For me, I don't know about anybody else at the table. I feel like there's a false sense of bravado in answering this question because my answer is going to be absolutely not. God damn it, I'm American. But I'm not sure that I wouldn't change my plans because I have little ones. I think that would affect my ultimate decision, maybe, but I don't know that it would be. For me, there's this line of risk that I'm completely willing to live on one side and maybe not so much on the other, and I don't personally foresee my being a victim of a terrorist attack as more likely in the UK than I do here. Truth of the matter is, I drove here. I could have been stopped at any number of intersections by a cop and shot just for the color of my skin. So there's, I don't know.
That's a sad statement that we all take that as true.
Yeah. So for me,
No
it's,
arguments.
It's not.
Well, how do you think I feel? I'm English.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you know what the American police are like with the English.
Yeah,
they
but
still
they
think
only
we
want
were
to shoot you
redcoats.
after you talk, though. They can't.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to shoot Jeremy
Yes.
after he talks.
So I don't know. Like, I absolutely want to say.
It's interesting that the reason I got this was I picked up a story that the airlines are getting every day people who are trying to cancel their flights to Paris and London and Germany and things like that because they're worried about terrorist attacks. And I was
Because
just
they're-
interesting.
Quote unquote reeling, but they're
Yeah.
not.
Well, but this is kind of my question or thought that there's, without question, going to be that group of people that voted for Trump that say, all foreigners are evil and all foreigners are coming to get us. And
Oh, come on. Most of them couldn't afford to go to
Yeah, but they're the ones who never would have
Overseas
traveled to
anyway.
Europe in the first place. So
but you get my point.
or any desire
There's
to go
gonna be
anywhere
this-
that English wasn't spoken anyway.
No, there's going to be this group of people that say, I'm not willing to put up with that level of risk. And for them, that might be a reasonable, like they may lead a sheltered enough life that they've got their, gated community that they don't have to ever leave and they can.
So they won't go to the UK or France, but they'll probably just go to Mexico as usual instead.
Well, but you can hire armed guards
dumb
in
is
Mexico. And you can
Who will
pay
tell?
your,
Who will
kill
tell
you.
their brothers, "Hey, I'm looking after this couple. We're going to take a little walk around 10:30. Come and kill them and take their money."
That was
Sicario.
Jeremy Taylor. That was nobody else on the podcast. Any of our Mexican listeners that want to register a complaint, just send them directly to Jeremy.
Okay, so
that was
just
only a problem in Italy, but
that we're going to do. Eric doesn't know this, but on a show we do, Eric and I, we're going to do a thing about keep calm and carry on. and the history behind it, in fact. And it's very important, I think, that people understand, and since I've been there I can say it, is that if we don't carry on, then the bad guys win. So it's very important that one, as my mother would say, still go shopping at Horridsdeer. It's very important that we do go to the places we would normally go to, because if we stop going, then the idiots with the knives, the murderers...
You're just creating the terrorism that, they are
it's
after.
very interesting. Chris has just made a point. He said a word, terrorist. It's interesting where that comes from, that they're creating terror. And some people, Nelson Mandela, for instance, was accused of being a terrorist.
I don't think he was just accused. I think he was being a terrorist.
Right. But one man's terrorist is another man's hero, sort of thing. Talking of travel plans, remind us again, share with us the top single place in the world that you want to visit and why. Dr. Orlando.
Akihabara, Japan. Shopping district.
Oh. What would be your motive there?
Electronics. Hello. I have studied Chinese. I've studied Japanese. I have an affinity for East Asian cultures overall, and the one place that for sure is on my bucket list is traveling through China.
Is a shopping mall in Japan?
Well, that's one of the places.
No, I said one place.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was being very specifically.
Yeah,
one place.
And it would be Akihabara, Japan. Yes.
And is there a particular store that you'd like to go to?
I don't know the stores.
It's just a big, huge shopping district. So they got electronics, they got manga, they got anime. I mean, whatever you want.
Yeah.
So Chris, who's showing off his knowledge of Japan and all things Asian, where would you like to go, Chris?
That'd be Tibet.
Tibet?
Dude,
Yep.
there's only mountains there.
Because now,
I know,
am I
but it's
right in
gorgeous.
thinking Tibet is actually difficult to get into?
And Brad Pitt's there, too.
I know, but my wife's family has connections.
Right, but
No,
seriously,
but we might go next time we go. We might go.
seriously though, you have to get special visas and things, don't you?
Yes, you do. But my wife has connections, family connections that would probably make it easy for us to get the visas to go to Tibet.
But that's the one
You gonna
place.
visit the Dalai
Jay-Z?
Lama?
He's not in Tibet anymore.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Can we go with
he's
Where
in-
the hell is he at?
He's in London, isn't he?
I don't remember where he's living now, but yeah,
So
they're
Tibet for you, Japan for Dr. Orlando, Mikey?
Well, there's so many places I want to travel. I can't say I have a bucket list. I mean, wherever I can go.
All right, since you were a little kid, where would you like to go? And I mean, it could be Topeka. I mean, what is the one place
How
that
about
you
the moon?
that you would like to you'd like to go? Just something special. Maybe a place you read about when you were a child or something.
Scarlett Johansson.
yeah. I can understand
Right.
that.
Okay.
Yes. It's like the Kardashians, but you don't mind which one.
Oh, what? Why the Kardashians?
Well, for example, yeah.
Ugh.
So the place you'd like to go with Scarlett Johansson. All right, we're all going to die. Kathleen.
I
question
don't
for you.
really have a
Yes, you
a
do.
specific
You're on a
destination.
panel. Where would you like
Mine
to
is
go?
an imaginary place.
Oh, God. Okay, please don't make it porn.
No, but it is a library
'Cause the
where I
children
could
listen to this.
live and be fed and clothed and so on, and read as much as long as I wanted to without being interrupted and without having to do anything else.
Except for the last couple of things. That's Jonestown. Pretty sure.
There is that, yes.
What about you, Mr. Taylor? Where
Hong
would
Kong.
you go?
Hong Kong for a couple of days. Ever since I was little, when I was little in England, everything was made in Hong Kong. So I had no idea where Hong Kong was. And then I discovered that it might be slightly Chinese. And probably saw James Bond movies and things like that. But I thought that has to be the coolest place on the planet.
You are hearing this. The Brits want to take back Hong Kong, right? You're getting that.
Well, yeah, the Brits want to take back everything. What are
Hey,
you talking
this
about?
Brit still wants to take back the U.S.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm down.
Would we get a
You're
new
on the list,
president out of the
pal.
deal?
You're going to be on the list.
Don't you guys do recall elections?
When we come
I don't
back,
want Theresa May any more than I
Don't
want
you have
Donald
recall
Trump.
elections? Because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
down
true.
for that. Like, I'm so down
No,
for...
I think I'd rather have
Oh,
Theresa
I
May.
love Parliament.
I'm
Just
pretty sure I'd
rabble,
rather have
rabble,
Theresa
rabble,
May.
yelling. I wish our Congress and Senate just yelled at each other and called each other names. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I
more would
love
get
watching
done.
Parliament.
They
Oh,
don't-
that's so
they
much
don't-
fun.
Actually get physical in general. That's because they are 2 swords lengths away in Parliament. That's why they were
You notice
just
she
designed
specified
that way.
2 swords
That's
lengths away.
exactly
she is,
how it was measured.
And she is absolutely.
And it is
correct.
hilarious to watch
We need
as
to be-
everybody
we
nods
need
and
to be-
shakes their heads and grumbles and yeah.
We need to be 2 guns lengths away, or at least how far bullets can travel. That's the American way. We need to separate.
But just think of the spanking that Trump would get if he tried to, do the prime minister's time in front of Parliament. It just
Well, I have to say there is a very
He would
interesting
blow a
thing
gasket.
going on right at the moment in that Trump has demanded, through his people, to have an open carriage ride down the mall with one of the royals, preferably the Queen.
I thought they
And-
turned him down.
And, well, the mayor, Sadiq Khan, who is a Muslim, incidentally, has suggested that Trump should be uninvited. There is video online that you can see of the Queen talking to her senior 007 agent, James Bond. He'd come to collect her for something, and she said, "Oh, Commander Bond, about Trump. Make it quick." So who knows? The Queen is 90. There are very few people on the planet who move the Queen. That includes her children, And so it'll be interesting. I find it fascinating because Charles isn't going to sit in a carriage with him. The 2 younger princes aren't going to sit in a carriage with him. So he may, if he's really unlucky, get Princess Anne. Talking of dreams, tell us why in the real world you believe it's still possible. Talk to a bunch of Liberal Democrats here. Why in the real world do you believe it's still possible to live the American dream?
because I'm living it right now.
Because single payer and guaranteed income initiatives are coming right around the corner. Bernie 2020.
Wow.
It really depends on how you
Dr. Orlando
Can
a glass
somebody
of water?
define American dream?
define American dream.
Yeah. What is living the American dream? What does that
For
mean?
me, it's living my life the way I want to. I mean,
What I'm
and,
doing right now.
and that's what I'm doing.
We're having the
'Cause
greatest
traditionally it's
damn
been
podcast
involved-
in the world with the greatest damn people in the world, and I'm damn greatest happy about it.
Hoorah!
Hoorah.
Hoorah!
Yep.
But it's actually traditionally been defined as that your children will be able to prosper and live a better life than you did. In other words, it's improving.
Fuck that.
Well, that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen.
And that, by that definition, we are not.
I
any
worry more
longer
about my
dreaming-
producer
living
than I
the
do about
American
my
dream.
kids.
And in essence,
yeah.
since my parents know that I am not doing better than they are not living the American
That's right.
dream either. So,
Yep.
To hell with your parents, I say. Good for Mikey.
thank
No,
you.
that's not right.
Thank you.
We got that the other way.
I think you screwed that up.
Did I?
I
Should it
think
be
so.
the other way around?
I think it should be the other way.
Your
Well, then you
parents
have-
should be helping you, Mikey, much more than they do.
No, they help me way too much. In fact, they've helped me way too much. I have
You are a
not.
leech.
I have not scuttled off of my slimy belly and crawled into a new hermit crab enclosure. I don't know. I'm just waiting for
This may be
somebody to
why you haven't
adopt
got
me.
laid for 6 months.
It's not my fault.
Those shells get really smelly, you know.
Clean your shell, for God's sake, Mikey.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's a very expensive product to do that. They only make it 3 times a year, and the animal that takes to extract those chemicals from is almost extinct. So
There are non-artisanal options. You realize that, right?
you know, I have not paraded through Reddit or Etsy enough in my life. I have too many
You
things
try
going
Craigslist.
on. Yes.
Casual encounters, I think you'll find it.
Yes.
This is looking for shell enhancement.
And
Products,
I paid the person the $1,000 subscription
Right.
fee that they said, and so far nothing. So far nothing.
You just get someone rub your shell and that's it.
And
Somebody sent
I don't
him
think I got that
a
even.
tin of shoe polish, huh?
I got absolutely nothing other
So,
than...
Kathleen, I moved here with you to America a few years ago.
I do remember that.
What is the American dream?
I think the American dream is not how you are living, but that you are able to, that everybody has an equal shot at succeeding, and and you will be able to improve your lot by hard work and education, and that your kids are going to have better chances than you did by your own hard work.
Dr. Orlando.
I've been sitting here thinking while we were performing matchmaking duties for Mikey.
Good job. Good luck.
So, in a somewhat convoluted way, I wonder then if the minority groups in America aren't potentially still living the American dream, because we've just always traditionally done worse. So I can confidently say that my kids are probably going to be better off than I am. They are starting at a much higher level economically, if nothing else, than my family did.
What about academically?
Well, academically, we're
No,
all...
ecumenically.
Ecumenically?
Ecumenically.
You can't say that 3 times.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Architecturally?
He's just throwing a lot of syllables on there. Ignore him. Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm asking myself the question, like, what would you say to all those immigrants, legal or illegal, that are coming over from Mexico, that are working the
Fuck
field?
off back where you came from.
I know what you would say, you and your buddy, your pen pal, Donald. But these are folks that are essentially living at the, bottom tier of our society, and they are still working in saving and training their kids to do all those things that presumably are the bedrock of the American dream. So
But you're saying minorities have a better chance of living the American dream. But if you are a young black male, what are your chances of getting a police record and having that screw up your life?
Oh, easily 60%, if not higher.
Then that's not true.
See, I'm not sure that the one necessarily negates the other. I think that there's a possible... Put it this way. I think that there is... when you think of people that would sort of typify what the American dream was, at least, you think of folks like the Budweiser commercial that they recently did with Adolphus Busch coming over.
Oh, yeah.
You think of things like Horatio Algiers. You think of these guys that are essentially downtrodden, that, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go out and make your millions. That's kind of the story behind it. And I'm not sure that, say, someone like Jay-Z, for instance, who quite literally was a drug dealer, who was arrested many times, who is now, running a media empire, doesn't quite literally typify the American dream. So...
Well, maybe that explains Trump.
No, I think that this
because
is...
people who have been much more severely downtrodden are still looking at living a better life.
Right.
Whereas the people who were in the heyday of the American dream, the white middle class, are not looking at their kids improving their lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that explains why Trump won.
This is why there's so much hatred. There's so, you can't, you literally can't bring up things like Black History Month in mixed groups, because certain people get upset because it's not all about them. There was a Wonder Woman showing this weekend. That was an all-women's showing of Wonder Woman, and you would have thought they were attacking men with the way that their men came after them.
It's even more specific than that. There were people who complained about the color of her armpits in one of the trailers.
So
They
Her
actually
thigh jiggled.
they actually
Her thigh
changed the
jiggled.
trailer.
So yeah, I think that there's this problem where we've basically built our society up to this point where people, where the major class, the first class, or however you want to define
Magerkurth.
white people in America, have essentially reached the apex of their success.
Yeah.
And so now it's going to be time for
Leveling
other
out.
groups, and it's going to level out, which is going to piss off all. For me, this thing with Wonder Woman, the reason that it pissed off so many men is because they're sitting around thinking, no, it's our job to exclude you. You can't exclude us.
Yeah.
There was a very interesting.
about it.
There was an interesting article in one of the British newspapers today by a woman called Eve Pollard, who was a sort of raunchy columnist from the 70s.
I know her. She wants me.
And she was pointing out how much, now at 70, she regrets not being 35 anymore. Because she said she woke up the other day and realised that no one is ever going to catcall her again. And how offended she was when she was 25 and 35 and 18 when men catcalled her. She said there was a time when I could go near a building site and actually cause structural damage. She said
I think her friends should make a point of catcalling.
she said she misses that. In countries with free speech, as a
Free
right,
speech.
free speech, in countries.
Let's start over.
Can we?
Fifi. Now, okay, look, I better explain, just so you know, what Cove Fifi is, right? Just so you know.
never
He was,
know.
he was
Who
trying
can
to say
figure out?
He was trying to say
No,
feces, wasn't he? He really
I've been
was.
saying
No.
Trump is old buddies with Jeremy here. They've known each other for 50, 60 years.
Yep.
They go way, way back. Okay, go ahead, tell us.
Cove Fifi is a French term for a particular type of handshake, right? And this handshake
So that
is...
was what Mark Cohen was up to.
Exactly. It is a handshake that you use when you need to put someone in their place. And so what was happening was that the president, dear chap, was dreaming of Marcone. He was falling asleep, right? As you do
Was this a
sometimes.
wet dream
and,
of
and he was thinking, bastard, right? Yes. Mikey's got it. Yeah. And
No, Macron.
yeah,
Don't do it, Macron.
Kofifi.
No, don't. What are you doing
Because
with my
he
tiny
knew-
hand? Don't
and,
do it.
And of course you have Trudeau as well. You see, who is also sort of French.
Right. French light.
Sort of, yeah, French light.
French
And of course, the
Canadian.
two people who've given him a hard time handshaking wise have Kofifi'd him. Right? And that's
Stop it.
why.
What are you doing with my tiny hand?
he
Don't
should
shake it.
have said "damn Kofifi" or something like that, but he fell asleep and he just wrote Cove Fifi. Everybody knows that. Anyway, in countries with free speech as a
there
right,
you go, people. Well,
does there come
there
a
you have it.
time when a government should remove vile rants from media and the people who espouse them? And if so, who or what should decide the circumstance for the removal? And before you suddenly just blurt out, do bear in mind that the American government already do that.
From media. They take
Don't ask me.
nasty, vile stuff
in
out
countries
of...
with free speech
100% true.
as a right, does there come a time when a government should remove vile rants? My interest is that the American president had a go at the London mayor the other day for not arresting a whole load of Muslims.
You saying they should have removed his tweet?
I'm asking you. You're on
The government
panel.
should have removed Trump's tweet because it was a vile rant, which it was.
We can't do that because it's a presidential record, so you can't delete the tweets.
Well, I read
But-
the question as a little bit differently. I read the question as, in cases of things like hate speech, should the government have the ability, responsibility, however you want to say it, of ensuring that gets taken down so that it is seen by as few people as
What if it's
possible?
published on paper?
You know,
Is it treated
pull
the
up
same?
Fahrenheit 451 and gather it all up and burn it, and So here's my thought: is we move perilously close to the whole thought crime thing, and I'm pretty much against thought crimes. So,
Me too.
You're against punishing thought crimes?
I'm against punishing thought crimes. Yeah.
I don't like even the fact that we have, on our books, hate crime laws. I mean, hate was once a motive. It was part of, this act was done. He assaulted this person because he hated him. He hated him because he saw his skin color as different. The real problem is the assault. He took a baseball bat to the guy. Why do you need to confuse the issue with saying, "Oh, there's a hate crime now"? It's like, okay, hate was part of the motive, and we've shown,
That's why.
So
because
just
of the motive
prosecute
factor.
for what the crime was, the assault.
If you just try to get somebody on common assault, people look at, well, what's the motive? I mean, this probably, if you put, this is the guy's point of view, this is what he believes, he thinks that these people should be dead, and that's why he was hitting. You can do that if you're calling it a hate crime.
But that's not a crime, though. Hating somebody is not a crime.
It is if you assault people because of it.
But the assault is the crime. But you can sit there in your house and sit there and stew and hate all you want. But as the moment you take action, then government has an issue with it. But
So
before
does that
that
mean,
point, it's like Lewis was saying, it's thought crime, and you can't criminalize thought, because then you get to the point where, okay, let's develop technology so that we can read everybody's thoughts, and so that as soon as somebody thinks a bad thought, we move in and arrest them.
See, I actually don't go into that direction. I think that thought crime is maybe a misnomer, but I think that the rationale that you just pointed out, Kath, is exactly it. When you are looking at assault, if I, take this cup and hit you over the head and am arrested for it, that's going to be, two buddies having it out because we're both interested in the bartender. So, on the other hand, if you have basically spent your last 10 years talking about how evil black people are, or I'll take it back. If I had spent the last 5 years talking about how evil white people are and then done that very same thing, I think those are two radically different crimes.
But there's yeah, you're right. One is a crime of passion. We're both, arguing over.
No, they're both crimes of passion.
No, one is we're arguing over the bartender. Each of us wants to take her home tonight. The other one is you've been looking at me and stewing the fact that stupid white guy, he's had so many more breaks for me. I'm going to get him finally. One is,
even if I've never met you before.
Yeah, even if you've never met me before,
it's still premeditated.
Yes, it's premeditated.
See,
because
I'm not sure
that's where I'm going with it, because you've been sitting there thinking this, that, and the other thing, as opposed to we just happen to see a girl that we like and we get into a discussion argument about it.
If we could read each other's thoughts, though, there would be no crime. If people could read each other's
thoughts,
thoughts,
read my mind, I would be immediately
humanity
sent to
would
jail.
immediately eliminate each other.
Quick.
if we could read each other's thoughts, then we would be very, very much nicer to each other. We would change our thoughts.
Oh, no.
We would change our thoughts.
I wouldn't think differently about certain people if they were nice to me. I'd still think they were complete idiots.
Why are you looking at me when you say that, Kat?
Because you're trying hard not to look at me.
If they knew that, doesn't matter how nice I'm going to be. People would know your thoughts.
I think there is a line on there. The line has to do with if there is malicious intent in what you say to incite violence, to incite harm. That's where it comes from. If you have malicious intent within your words to incite violence and harm, and you could make the argument that there is also economic violence, that there is sociological violence, that things that are not necessarily violent as far as physical violence, but it is still sociological violence, because things like that still
Well, what
do
about,
happen.
say, putting up hanging a noose to indicate that that is a symbol that is a hate crime if you do it in the context. In a certain context. I was going to say the right context. There is no right context.
Artistic context?
No. If you do something like that is meant to intimidate, you're not going to get done for trespassing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my question is then, if you're the London mayor or the head of MI5 or something like that, and you see the guy that is being watched by the security services go to a park in London, drape the ISIS flag over the loudspeaker stack and start to make speeches. And that turns out to be one of the guys who did the attack the other day. Does that change your conversation? Should he have been arrested? Should he have been put away in a dark hole somewhere?
I think it should generate a conversation, but I don't think it would actually change my position that you don't want to be in the habit of moderating people's thoughts. But I agree 100% with Chris. As soon as there is an actionable offense, you take action.
And the second part of your question here is most important. Who or what decides what is removal? Because today it's the ramblings of ISIS. 50, 60 years ago, it was the ramblings of the communists in America. Even though
Dr. King,
they weren't doing anything illegal other than organizing as a political party, which supposedly is supposed to be a perfectly legal thing to do.
We actually have in another place that I do stuff. There is actually a machine within 2 feet of my producer's hand, often 6 inches when he starts leaning towards it, that will delete. I need to say that again. Delete.
It's the bleep button.
Delete what I have just said. So the answer is the the answer is in fact
I have one at home.
is the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
And that's yes. If a private entity wishes to create that method of control to prevent those things, perfect. That's great because
but it's not. It's a national entity.
Now, if it's a national, if it's a government entity, that's the thing. The government has to tread a fine line between what is maliciously inciting violence and maliciously inciting an encroachment on other people's rights. And what is free speech? What is free speech? Your speech cannot violate the rights of others. For example, yelling fire in a theater.
That's sort of a misnomer, but yeah, it's...
Exactly. But, well, good example. You cannot say, I want to kill the president. You, however, can say
it. You just did.
I didn't. I'm using it in the context. I'm not Bill Maher here, okay? I'm not. Anyway.
You can say it as a joke. You can say it as ironic, but you can't say it and mean it.
However, you can say and mean, I hope the president is charged, tried, convicted, and hanged for treason. That's perfectly fine.
Well, I will leave you with this, and thank you very much for listening. If anybody threatens the Queen, we will send a destroyer. You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed. I managed to get in just before Dr. Orlando had some deep, meaningful piece of psychological.
Ask you if you have seen the scene with Richard Harris in Unforgiven, when he's talking about what would happen if someone were to try to shoot the Queen.
Try to or shoot?
No, the whole premise of the scene was him saying that this was after Lincoln was assassinated, that could never happen in England because you would be so overcome with awe at being in the presence of the Queen that you would simply drop your gun.
It's the magic powers. She has powers.
You haven't seen this? This is my question.
The Knights Templar.
Well, I
gave her
have
those
been in the
powers.
presence of Her Majesty.
Was that
Queen.
my question?
Yes, and she saw you and turned around and went the other direction.
And she turned around and walked the other way.
Well, that was probably a good thing on her part. You were about to say something, Kat.
Could I just point out that we used to have a segment on here with Evo's wonderful inventions, right?
Uh-huh.
And I've just had a good idea for a wonderful invention.
Oh, God, we need to get in touch with...
Okay.
Hang on.
It's-
Just a second. We've got to get in touch with Bulgaria.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's a button with that emits negative voice pulses. Okay, and you can aim it, and you can hide it in your hand. And when you don't like what somebody's about to say, you can bleep it, and no sound will come out of their mouth, and they won't know why.
How could Jeremy possibly host this show?
I do have to say, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that although my favourite phrase is "you've been listening," if you could have seen the face of our engineer just then, who has been an engineer in TV and radio for 30 years, as he's thinking,
The negative
I
voice.
wonder if we could make something like that. And Eric, the producer, is fascinated. He thinks this is just amazing because then he wouldn't have to cover when Eva and I, and particularly when Chef's on one of my shows,
Lord.
he wouldn't have to have his hand all over the button. He could sit back in his chair and relax. So I give it, for the first time, for the second time, for the third time, the full and final. You've been listening to Wednesday Night Undressed, the podcast that refreshes parts that other podcasts don't refresh. We'd like to thank the magic Dr. Orlando, the indefatigable Kathleen Taylor, of course, Mikey Pokorny, Chris Magerkurth, and our engineers, Neil Rasmussen. And of course, fresh from his longboat, Eric the producer. Who actually has a song written about him. Not a lot of people know that, but if you listen to our shows, we will often play it. If he doesn't get to the button first. Okay, thank you guys.